motivation. Okay, what's my motivation for using that if I have to? So I've been on the same dose of medication for 8 years. Never had to increase it, never whatever. And I can sit in a room like this for an hour without like having to leave, where I could never do that before. And if I'm not on it, that's when people know. The people in my life look at me and go, "You haven't taken your medication, have you?" And I say, "Well, no, I haven't." "How did you know?" And they go, "Well, you're a jerk right now." You know, you're snapping at everybody. You're this. You're like that. And I go, "Oh, okay. Let me go take my medication." It's a tool, right? It's just a tool to manage my frontal lobe that doesn't work. I think I had that as a kid. And I probably did more damage to it because of like the 15 years of using before the age of 15 I started, you know. So like I said, you got to wait 2 years usually of clearing up for your brain to see what's actually left and what you're actually really dealing with. And if you've been self-medicating, to find out like what's really there. And some of it's really real. You know, there's a lot of drug and alcohol counselors that will say things to me like, "I can't believe you tell people that it's okay for them to take on those other kind of medications." And I go, I don't know what their story is. I don't live inside their bodies or their heads. Neither do you. It always comes down to motivation though, right? You know, I used to ask my sponsor, "Can you go to clubs if you're in recovery?" He goes, "Depends. What are you going for?" I was like, just to have fun. And he goes, "Well, there's nothing wrong with that." He said, "But the thing is, it's harder in early recovery not to use if you're like got a lot of triggers around you and you're overwhelmed. I just want to know, do you have an escape plan? Do you have a way to get out and get to a safe place if you got to?" Like, "Oh, I never thought about that." Yeah, plan ahead, right? So, I mean, how about the holidays? Just get around your family during the holidays in your first couple of years of recovery. That'll make you want to use. Okay. Well, I'm just speaking for myself, okay? Knowing my family, when I get around them, I'm like going, God. I was gone for a month with my sisters in Charlotte and thought, you know, I went to a meeting almost every day down there because I was like, these people are crazy. All right? So none of these things are bad though, right? None of these things are bad. All right, so when you give up drinking and give up using, if you don't have anything yet to put in this place, then it's much, much harder in order not to drink and use. And the more that you get attached to alcohol and drugs, get attached to these positive things here, the more that we start to protect them and defend them. Okay, so the lecture today, or the education today, is about defenses, okay? And, you know, can you think of anything valuable that you lock up? Yeah, that you would put a lock on, that you would want to lock and make sure that people can't get to.
Guns.
Your gun? All right. What else?
Personal paperwork.
Paperwork. What's that? My money. I make sure my money's protected.
The ability to change.
You protect that?
Yeah, your denial protects that.
Well, that's a defense.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. So, anything else? I lock up my house. I lock up my car when I go to the store. You know, I don't just leave it wide open. Okay. So the things that matter to you, you wind up protecting in life. Okay. And you know, the one thing we can't do, you cannot take people's defenses away from them when they're first starting to get better. You just can't take them away from them and give them nothing else to put in its place, to like get all these other things here. Because if you do that and people are like get overwhelmed enough, remember we talked about if you look in your bag of skills in life and tricks and coping skills and problem solving things, and you look in there and you go, I got drinking and using, addiction, whatever ways I've learned to survive before over here, going crazy or killing myself. And you say all of a sudden you go, well, you can't drink or use anymore, right? You can't drink or use anymore. Then people are like, I can go crazy or kill myself. Just like all these positive things aren't necessarily bad, Defenses aren't necessarily bad either, okay, because they can help you protect whatever it is that you need at that time in your life or that you become attached to. Okay, so the problem is that the more that a person gets addicted, the more your thinking gets irrational to keep justifying doing something that might be self-destructive, right? You know, like when I was on probation, I'd sit there and I'd say, well, God, I know that I can't smoke pot right now because they will catch me. That stuff stays in your system for 30 days. But they say cocaine can be out within 72 hours, depending on how much you use or not. Maybe I'll do a little bit of that because I don't have to go to probation until next week, 7 days from now. And just hope that they don't give me a surprise drop, which they did in New York City a lot. They would just call you up randomly. In the program that I was in for the after you get arrested so many times, they call it the random drop program. And it doesn't matter where you're at, 24/7 they can call you. And you have to be in their office within 2 hours to give them a drop, 24/7. Yeah. And so I was like going, just don't call me in the next 3 days, right? You know, so like you start like justifying or rationalizing or, you know, bargaining, doing things like that, okay? So defenses get to be a problem when they continue to put you at risk of losing more things that are valuable to you or like protecting you, okay? And it's really important to know what your defenses are because, does anybody know what step 3 of a 12-step program says? Do you remember? Anybody know?
Yeah.
What's step 3?
Seem to believe the power of myself.
That's 2.
Made a decision to
turn our will.
Will?
lives over to care of God as we understand.
Yeah, so step 3 says we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God to be, right? Whoever God was. So the great thing about that is that those people in the early AA were really smart because they knew if we came in and like somebody said, Greg, you have to believe in Buddha. Okay, you better go to Church of Islam. Okay, I need you to be a Catholic. Okay, you're gonna have to be a Protestant. You know, this whatever. Like, addicts are oppositional by nature. One of our personality traits is we are oppositional, right? We talked about that before. You tell us to do something, oh no, you didn't. All right. So they were smart. They said God as you understand Him. They let you be right where you were at with that. But so step 3 says when we make a decision to turn our will and our lives over, that's a decision. It's not a feeling at the beginning. Because, you know, this leap of faith that we have to take from this life over here that we know, and all these people are saying it's going to be better over here if you invest in recovery. And we're the original doubting Thomases, right? We walk in like with our arms, prove it. I don't trust any of you. I never met a person yet that walked into recovery trusting, first of all, themselves or other people. We're like, prove it. I don't believe you. I don't believe it can get better. So that's step 2, right? We have to come to believe that it can actually get better. Step 3, you can't turn your will over and choose to. Yeah, you can't choose to turn your will over, you know, and make a decision to do that unless you're convinced, first of all, that the way you've been running the show isn't working. And you can't do it either until you recognize when you're actually like grabbing it back. So understanding your defenses is a way of starting to recognize when you might like be like going back to your old stuff and starting to shut down and maybe like not want to like move forward with your recovery program. So, you know, one of the things I know from being at, like, I was at 4 halfway houses over 8 years, right, all together, in and out. And there comes a time, like I was really grateful when I first got there, but it always hit for me, it's different for each person, but it always hit for me around 2 weeks when I went, I am out of here, right? I was like, everybody hits it, right? We all hit that. It's different for each person whenever you hit that thing. And sometimes it's more than once when you're there that happens, right? But I was like, it was always 2 weeks was the hard thing for me. I was like, oh, I hate this place. Oh, the rules, all the whatever, you know. And my defenses, the ways that I, you know, kept from looking at myself were some of the things the ways that I started acting all that out, okay? So let's look at the first one here, is denial, okay? Denial is where you really just like, it doesn't even apply to me. I mean, it's really, you know, that pre-contemplative stage of change where you're just like going, I don't really see how this is my problem, this is whatever, okay? That's usually earlier stages of addiction. Okay, maybe one or two negative, well, the cop just, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Okay. First time I got busted walking in Central Park, busted by a Mountie, right? And that horse was right here, high as hell. He's up on I saw the horse's face come right here. And the Mountie was behind me. I was smoking a big old fat one, right? And, you know, I was just like, I mean, it was good stuff. And I heard the cop say, man, that smells like some good, right? And I thought the horse was talking to me. That's how high I was. And I was like, Mr. Ed's talking to me. Oh my God, you know? And so the cop just laughed and everything. And I got busted first time on probation when I was 16. And it was like, I can't believe this. This is just, you know, just bad timing. I don't really have a problem. Pot should be illegal anyway, right? And one of my defenses was intellectualizing. So now this is like the arrogance of being 16 years old, right? And how naive I was about the legal system. I said to the judge that I didn't think that I should be on probation because George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin all smoked pot. And Ben Franklin preferred pot over wine. And the judge just looked at me and said, it wasn't illegal then. 6 months probation. Next, right? He was not impressed with my knowledge. You know, or my passion for like liberty and, you know, that we should be able to choose what we want, you know, so that's denial, okay? Intellectualizing is overthinking. That's the problem of smart people. The people that like get in their head and they can, and they can like make arguments for it, right? Like, well, pot should be legal because, you know, it doesn't cause as much harm as all these other things. And this, I never saw anybody kill anybody for pot, you know, like they would for crack, or they, you know, people just don't sell their whole houses full of, back up a U-Haul to sell all their furniture, you know, to go smoke pot like they do crack, you know. And so it's intellectualizing, getting up in your head. And, you know, the smarter you are, the harder it is to get sober, because you have more creative thinking to justify, rationalize all the other kind of things that you need, okay? So the smarter you are, the harder it is. Displacement, that's often feels when you can't express your anger or feel. The boss yells at you, and you wind up taking it on somebody else. So a defense is like, if you know, like you're starting to feel some heat from your using, and instead of feeling it yourself and sitting with it, you start taking it out on other people. You just start blaming, getting angry, getting, you know, acting out in other ways. It's like a steam release kind of thing. You know, like somebody's mad at you about your using, so you kick your dog, right? It's that kind of thing. All right, take it out on something else beside what the real problem is. So that's displacement, where you shift all that energy somewhere else like that. Agreeing is the same thing as compliance, okay? Agreeing is when you say, you're right, I drink too much, I need to go to help, I'm gonna hurt somebody. And it's what we tell the judges, right, if you're in front of a judge. It's compliance. You know, it's like, yes, sir, I'll do whatever you say. Okay, yeah. You know, or your boss is on your butt, or the people that you love, or anybody that's on you at that moment. And then you get really good at being able to tell them what they need to hear.